Welcome back to the channel, guys. So I am pretty under the weather. I've been sick for a while. Wasn't gonna do a video, but seeing as the day that it is, and the impact Memorial Day has had on me and my life as a soldier, I really wanted to make a video to sort of talk about what Memorial Day actually means, because I think as a country we're starting to really forget about what this day is actually all about. Okay, so any soldier that's been in the military in a combat capacity for the last 1 to 2 decades in the global war of terror has lost friends, teammates, loved ones. We all have, right? I've lost multiple teammates. People in my organization, even more so in the regiment, and then obviously all across the military. Okay, it's not just specific to special forces at all for how many lives we've lost in the global war on terror in the last 20 years. Okay, and obviously Vietnam veterans still around as well. My dad being a former Green Beret in Vietnam, and even some World War II still left. Okay, so I really just want to make this video to remind everyone from the soldier's perspective how important this day actually is. Okay, so we're paying homage to our fallen soldiers. Okay, and this is going to be important later because numbers wise, we've lost almost 10,000 soldiers in the global war on terror in a combat capacity, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that doesn't even include the amount of death via suicide, substance abuse, that have happened as a direct result of that time in combat for a lot of soldiers. Unfortunately, those numbers are extremely higher if you were to factor those in, which I think you probably should. So, what are we paying the ultimate sacrifice for? Well, it used to be understood after Pearl Harbor and after 9/11 and events like that America is the greatest country in the world, not for economics and not for war power or anything like that, but for morality and culture. Okay, we are the first and will be the last bastion of freedom for human beings. When that system erodes in America, it's over for the rest of the world. Okay, you can try to argue against that, that's fine, but that's reality. Okay, so these soldiers, whether you agree with the war that they might currently be fighting or not, they're paying the ultimate sacrifice for those to their left and their right more than anything, but also, in the idealism of freedom and American values. Okay, which again, I have been all over the world. I have lived and operated in dozens of countries, Asia, Middle East, Europe. So, and there's no comparison. Nothing comes close to America being the best country in the world. You can try to argue that, but you haven't been to as many countries as me. So, it is what it is, right? So, again, as I talked about earlier, we don't just lost 10,000 soldiers in the global war on terror, for example. We have to look at how many people that affects. People lost their husbands, their wives, their children, their mothers, their fathers, brothers, sisters, cousins. All of those people are affected when somebody gives their life in combat, right? So really the amount of people affected is 10 times that number, if not more. Okay, and if you start to factor that in for things like the Vietnam conflict, it's massive, the amount of people that are negatively affected by this type of thing. Okay, so it's super important that we take today and we actually think about those sacrifices that have been paid over the last 200 years for us to actually enjoy the country that we live in, right? Even for, the college kids on campus supporting an Islamic terrorist group, masks over their face while they have their iPhone what's the newest one? 15 or whatever, right? Completely oblivious to how much freedom and how easy their lives actually are living in this country, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, even more important, not even more important, but just as important as the lives lost in combat is the lives lost or have when we come home. Okay, I've had, more than one teammate and very close friends of mine, coworkers, that we've lost to suicide, which is a huge problem in the Special Forces community and the military in general, far more than any demographic in America. And we're not really doing anything about it. So I want to talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of soldiers watch my channel, a lot of veterans watch my channel. I want you guys to understand, from my stories, the things I've been through, the combat I've been in, and I don't want you to think that that's had no effect on me, and because I'm this Green Beret, I'm some stoic warrior that hasn't been affected mentally or emotionally. I went through years of behavioral health therapy to deal with a lot of things. Okay, I had hit a point where I was massively suffering from the issues of PTSD untreated. Okay, I could have very easily found myself down that rabbit hole into suicide had I not seeked and got help and had someone, a doctor and a friend, push me towards that. Okay, so if you are someone that's struggling, I would highly suggest that you continue to seek out therapy, okay, in whatever capacity that works for you, and be it religiously, be it through whatever other form, okay. One of the biggest things I could just say is just having someone you can talk to about the things you've been through and the issues that you have, okay. Don't keep it all bottled up inside. A lot of people want to say you should be silent professionals, you shouldn't talk about any of this type of stuff. Of course, those are people that have never served themselves. They've never been to war. They've never been to combat. They have no idea the effect it has on us, okay? I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think you should speak it out loud, right? You shouldn't be the only one that has to deal with your emotional and your mental trauma from the things you've been through. And it's not just Green Berets or Navy SEALs that have been through this, right? In the last 20 years, you look at things like the Marines and Fallujah and Ramadi and all these types of things. It's just ugly, nasty stuff, okay? We've all been through a lot. So if you're someone who finds yourself depressed as a veteran and going through these issues, trust me, don't try to be tough about it, okay? I tried to do that for a while, and my buddies who ended up killing themselves tried to do that as well, and it didn't work out, okay? And these are some of the most stoic, some of the baddest men on the planet I've ever met in my life that ended up succumbing to this, okay? You're not any tougher than them. I'm not either, right? So, again, even though it is Memorial Day for our fallen, I consider those that have fallen afterwards as casualties of war as well, okay? And they should be understood and respected just the same, okay? So the last thing I want to leave you with is to remember what all these soldiers have died for, okay? I talked a little bit earlier about America and American values. So, especially when I look around on the campuses and I see what's going on, and for whatever reason we've decided Islamic terrorism is a cool thing to support, okay? That comes from a place of just utter shelterness here in America, and a nice safe space, okay? You haven't been on the ground and seen ISIS strap 1-year-old children to their chests as body armor, okay? You haven't been on the ground and seen people beheaded, their bodies dumped in acid, things like that, okay? That's the rest of the world in a lot of ways. These are the countries that we've been fighting. If you want to support that, feel free, okay? You're ignorant, you're naive, and you're gonna be on the wrong side of history, okay? This isn't just an Israel-Palestine thing. I don't care about that. I'm not, whatever, that conflict is its own thing. I'm just saying in general, we saw this even when ISIS was a thing. These American college students going to support ISIS, right? It's crazy. But just just remember that the fact you even have the freedom, if you're one of those people, to make those decisions or do these protests, is a direct representation of how amazing the country you live in actually is. So, again, let's pay homage to our fallen today, and I'll see you guys in the next one.